Okay, everybody, on to the next episode. So, market has given us some brilliant movement over the last few days. So, we start with GBP AUD on this one. Now, GA, interesting. So, from the last video, we had a great, well, you can see, 1 second. Let's trace the price back to where we left off. Now, first and foremost, we mapped out the pre-London high here, and I brought that area across. Now, on the last video, where were we? We were around here. And I gave a few different scenarios. I said that price could maybe fall from where it was to the downside to test all of these areas, in which it did eventually, or it could hit the higher area here. Okay, this hourly line, simple, because remember it was ranging for a while. Or it could breach or go up back into the pre-London high here and then start to decline. So what the market did, as you can see, the daily, this is where the last recording was. The price action was being tracked and traced over here. We pushed up into the high, and if I just go onto the 4 hourly, we can gain a little bit more clarity as to where price action took us. So there we go. Okay, so we were around here. And remember, we had the 9350 area where the crosshair is as a psychological level, which we're adding to the confluence. And it did appear on the 4 hour, on the macro time frame on the left hand side, that price respected that. It pumped to the upside once, made its new high, and we can clearly see exactly what the market did by pushing into the London high once more, closing more or less on the upper boundary of the rectangle. Secondary candlestick on the 15-minute, bringing the price back down, and then we started to dump. We dumped back into the region in the range. As you can see, this shooting star candle here spiked back into the highs and then closed lower as the shooting star. Moving averages did in fact cross over at that point, and then here was the breaker candle. Boom. We broke back below the area. So again, any stops which were placed below here on an intraday perspective were in fact taken out from those who were piling up longs on this new high. And then this is more or less the result of it. So we had the 4 hour area here where the bodies lie, bringing that across to the right hand side. You can see price broke through the small doji there, spiking through and closing back below. Candle pushing back to the downside. And then what we clearly had at that point in time, and I mentioned this on the last video, we did have other areas in which the market could then go on to respect and break. So what I did with the first Asia high, which was printed at the start of the week, I brought that area across. So by the end of day, here's 10 p.m. 10 p.m. closure, and we had the daily reversal actually form. So if going back over to the daily, you can see that this was the bearish engulfing candle, bringing the price all the way back down. This was the result of it on the 15-minute time frame. Price spiked once, twice, 3, 4 times back into the Asia high. So that's why it's always good, and it's always suggested that you just take your time, you zoom out on the micro scale and see, using the crosshair firstly, or just by trial and error, bringing the areas across to see are they again once more reactive to PA. PA reacted to it. Moving averages remained crossed to the downside. 1, 2, 3. Okay, the second and third points are new lower high swings. And then what did we do? Again, you can go back on episode 10 and see the thesis and the actual prediction that I did make is that GBP AUD will be sold into and pushed through the majority of these barriers, but most importantly, the US low, which was formed here, bringing the price across. What we've seen once that area was breached in Asia, Asia pushed the price back down. London open, boom, price spike back to the upside, and then that's where the London high was then formed. So the London high was formed right here, and bringing this area across, we just make that a little neater. Right there, you can see that price was reactive once more, came back into the London low, found liquidity, pushed back to the upside, and then was forcefully pushed back into London high. On the overlap 2 p.m. here, you can clearly see the bearish engulfing tapped into the previous London high. So the US session, New York, respected what London did there. Bearish engulfing, again, that was a cause for a nice short. pushed through, broke the boundaries, made new lows, and then the cycle again was printed once more. So we moved out of the bullish territory. We completely reversed. We had more or less a midweek reversal going into Tuesday and Wednesday. We completely reversed structure, and then what we've seen from there onward was after this area was respected, 8 p.m. right there, price was pushed back into London low 1, 2, 3 times, especially in Asia. Asia giving it the second and third touch. Going into Asia, we were already more or less there towards 11, 12 p.m. And then what we've seen is price breakdown again, retest, and then the price is just more or less swinging at the moment on the smaller time frames. If we look at the hourly on this entire structure, we can see that from the London high, let's just do a little recap. We have the bearish engulfing bringing it down. We have 1, 2, 3 drives. We consolidate and look at these hourly candles respecting the areas very, very neatly and nicely. We come back to the downside, various reversals. Here we come back into the MAs as well, consolidate for a small while. We can go in and look at this as a mini point of concern when it comes down to supportive areas. We have the high there too, and then boom, break below, previous low, tap, and then price continues to decline. So from here onward, what I am expecting, anticipating is that if you look at the day, okay, the day, I think we're going to come back to 1.8863, the weekly area of support now, and actually take all of these lows out on the daily time frame. Structure has been broken. And then going into the 4 hourly, we can clearly see that shooting star, again, wicks and spikes are the highs, and momentum, there's a lot of volume here as well. Momentum is just being pushed south on GBP AUD. So far so good. Nice and neat, but I'm sure I changed my my chart background to white just so you can get an idea as to well, I wanted to see this in as clearly as possible, but now you're more or less getting an idea on how all of this is formed, and you have to be very, very on point. Even for instance, once that London low was made, it was literally 15 minutes on the open. So you have to always just make sure you have time, zoom in, look at the highs and lows. Make sure, well, the faster you are at finding these areas and these zones, the better equipped you will be for future taps and reversals and so on. But you can clearly see where these zones are respected quite well, and they're always going to give you the highest risk reward potential trades, to be honest. And then we can just combine it with some of the standard technical analysis tools and obviously fundamentals, but we can clearly see where market is swinging, providing us, okay, so this looks as if it's going to be a low, but this was the low of that session right there. So London low, that is London low, and we're going to see how price reacts around here. So we maybe pop above, we could retest it and then shoot and have more or less a pullback, but due to what we see on the higher time frames, it looks like this thing is just going to continue to swing to the downside. This is the high of the session currently, so we can mark that one on there. And again, always put your labels on there, especially when you're learning and you're doing your screenshots and so on. And it's going to be easy for you just to track back and just see, okay, that's this one, this one, this one. And it just helps with programming your mind with these tools and remaining on point. So that's GBP AUD in a nutshell. Okay, so gold, interesting moves on gold today. I was also having a little mess around on some of the other currencies. I'll show you that at the end. But on gold at the moment, what we've seen was we more or less bottomed out here. Okay, we had price moving back to the upside, and I did mention that we could be in for another leg to the downside on gold. So when we were, okay, I'll get to all of this PA in a moment. On the last video, where were we? We were around, okay, we were around here. So what happened before I break the entirety of this chart down is that we've seen the Asia high. Okay, I found this small Asia high here and I brought this across because gold was having many issues around this area. So I was like, okay, cool. This is a supportive zone, but what's to the left of me which I may be missing? And I've seen the small Asia high and I brought that across, and it actually served 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and Asia high gave us a fake push. Sorry. Price was pushed back into the Asia high, and you can also see here where we're in this consolidation for some time, and then looking on the larger time frame, it was more or less this price action. Going to the hourly at that point in time, what we could have done is put together Okay. This area across, more or less from that spike, that wick across there, is a decent hourly point of reference. That hourly also lines up with the Asia high, which was again the low of these 1-2 sessions, for 3 sessions right there too. And then what we've seen is price rallies from that. And can you see how? Okay. Price came above and then used the moving averages here, especially the ATMA, as more or less a supportive region. So we broke above the purple line. We retested 1, 2, and then 3. And we also retested the ATMA. Okay. Now, with that being said, at the same time, points of reference to be aware of is that when we tested the Asia high as a low here, 1, 2, 3 times, market pushed up into, which one is this? This was the previous high of the week, the first initial high of the week. And then as you can see, if I really zoom in, how price just dumped from that area. Boom. It dumped, it halted, spiked through, and then we had another tap, which is more or less a tweezer bottom. And then the market was pushed into a higher realm. The higher realm respected this area right here. So the market pushed itself into that. And then again, look at this. Boom. Back into that area. Bullish engulfing brings the price back up. Okay. So you can see how we're clearly playing session time, zone to zone. And at this point in time, we've come back into the highs. We balanced against, this is why it's always important to really zoom in on your chart. We balanced on the moving averages, then we broke into a higher realm for the week. Now, I put the horizontal ray tool at the top peak candle wick here. It's 1469. And we retested it once more, but basically what we did, we would have taken out stops here too from those who were going short, because there's many forceful pushes into this region where it was just suddenly just stopped. Price just stopped. So, you know, I did mention last time it could start to go south again, especially after what we've seen on the last video where we were tracking this price. It could have easily went south to 1458, 1457. However, it didn't. It went back to the upside, and PA on this metal has been extremely crazy. So let me continue. So then what happened? We made the high, boom, we spiked back into that. Look at that accuracy there, where we spiked back into the London high as support, and then thrusted all the way to the upside and made an absolute huge move. And again, we can even translate. I'm not going to do it now. I'm actually going to delete some of the areas from last week, but this area was, look at the crosshair, bringing it across. This is why we stalled right there. So again, I keep that in mind. I don't want to clog the chart up too much. I want to keep it clean. And then what we've seen, okay, what I did is I placed the trendline tool at the top wick. Okay, and then what we had was session high form here, coming into Asia. Last night, Asia came boom, false breakout. I can remove that. False breakout back into the range. And then we had this huge uproar today where 1480 was tapped, breached. And then what did the US do? Look at the US. US brought the price all the way back down. So right now on gold, there would have been stops below this level from those who were jumping onto this sudden high volume up move. Okay, and a breakout. So imagine how many traders will be here long and how many stop losses will be here. What did the price do? We've seen this time and time again now on many of the videos, many of the episodes where price, market psychology, boom, dumps. So what I am looking at is look at the initial high of the week. Bringing the initial high of the week over to the right hand side, and what do we see? Supportive region 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't get any more accurate than this. You really can't. So what do I expect now on gold? What do I anticipate? At the same time as that initial weekly high being tested as support, we can also see that the 4-hourly has been tapped into. Okay, look at this. See here, where did we find resistance? At the top wick peak there of the 4-hourly. So we're back into the region and the range once more, but I don't believe it's going to stay here. I do believe gold is ready to boost back to the upside. And again, this would have drawn in many traders short. So my thesis for gold going forward is that it will reverse. There's 45 minutes left on this candle, and I'm looking for an upside move, upside boost. Okay, so the tweezer bottom there on the hourly. We have PA here testing, the previous weekly high, which is now a nice area of support, and that's also a session low for now. And we have the session high up here. Can gold recuperate, recover, and take out this high? I believe it may do that. So as I said, I was playing around with euro yen, GBP, JPY, style boredom more or less. But I was just tracking some of the moves on this as well. So what we had was, when I started to look at this a few days ago, we had this initial high here, okay, which was the US high. We had, I can take that off, that's not too relevant at the moment. We have the spike high, which I've connected the horizontal ray to. And we have the dip down, back above, retested that quite well. Then, take that off because that was not a session high. What we've seen is price break back above on the 15 minute. At the same time on the hourly, okay, bullish engulfing, bringing the price back up. Test 1, test 2, test 3, back above the moving averages. And as you can see there on this hourly, we started to trade above the MAs, especially the blue one, the ATMA, and we had the crossover. At that point in time as well, the 4 hourly, we had a small doji candle, but it brought the price back above the MAs where the closure was, and then here again. So looking at this perspective, okay, looking at this perspective, what we've seen was a high was formed in that session. We consolidated, and if I move this out of the way, look at the retest we had. High retest just there. That area was then broken, okay, so I can actually just adjust that. So that was a session high. Session high was broken, tested. Session high there, broke above, beyond, and as you can see, the market moved to the upside very well. GJ, again, example purposes, going to the 15 minute, I just mapped a few session highs and lows on. We had the initial lows of the week. We have a session high over here as well. Price, we had a session low, Asia high. Price broke through the Asia low, retested Asia low, and then melted, absolutely melted, was pushed all the way into the previous low of the week. And now it was pushed back above, support. Lots of spiky PA to the upside. If I really wanted to go into detail, I could go and say, okay, cool. Here, this area was the session high, and we've spiked into that session high right there as well. So I'm looking at price action pushing back below and maybe giving us some downside. Same with EJ really, but we'll see how that one performs. So that is that really. I hope you enjoyed that video. Let's see how gold performs. This is actually probably a good buy setup. Stops would have to be below here. Let's just keep an eye on that one for the next vid, and then we're looking at maybe 1488, maybe into 1500s again, to be honest. Into 1500s. And GA, look at GA now, 12 minutes on that, but we've ran into the previous session low, respecting that quite well, and we are probably going to create a new down leg. So on to the next.